I have some news stories to discuss, and here is the first news story, everybody. James Gunn says that the DCU is ruled by three groups, which are the metahumans, the government, and giant firms like Wayne Enterprise. Okay. There is the Wayne Enterprise thing right there. And Mark Julian writes, James Gunn was recently interviewed by his superstar, Rainn Wilson, in the aptly named Interview magazine, and DC Studios co-chair touched on a number of interesting topics, including what makes the DCU different from other cinematic universes. In talking about what separates the DCU from the MCU, James Gunn stated it's a different map. It's a world in which some form of superheroes, which we call metahumans, have existed for at least 300 years, and they've been part of our life. He adds, but I think we're reaching a point in the DCU where there's three factions. There's the metahumans, the government, and the corporations, and the corporations are equally as important. There's Luthor Corp, there's Lord Tech, and there's Stag Industries and Wayne Enterprises, which are the four big companies that are vying for another type of domination. Gunn went on to explain, and they aren't evil corporations, really. They're just freaking amoral corporations. And then he shows Luthor Corp and Wayne Enterprises. Even Luthor Corp isn't evil, despite the fact that Lex Luthor is its figurehead. The corporations in themselves aren't evil. Corporations are immoral. Lex Luthor is a pretty bad guy, although his corporation has done some great things. Luthor has created a battery which has made the running of the world a much more efficient process. He has cars that run more efficiently, that are better for clean air. He's done some really great things for the world, which is the reason for his obsession with Superman. He was considered the greatest guy in the world a few years ago, even though there were metahumans. And then this guy with dimples and a glint in his eye and a silly costume came in and made him feel like shit. So he's been sort of obsessed with him ever since, and he's gone evil. So there's okay, so there's going to give a breakdown there. So Kris, you hear this breakdown of what James Gunn says. Does all this make sense, or is it just like too much explaining?
No, this totally makes sense to me, especially if we are doing it's its own world, right? DC has always been it's our world, but a little different, right? With Metropolis and Gotham and everything. But it makes sense to tell stories like this so that we can relate to them and find correlations between them. Because then you have, the gods versus monsters idea that he's always been talking about with our heroes. But then we also have the government involved with things that can tie into different groups being bankrolled by Luthor or by Maxwell Lord, which kind of brings in the authority, which is something James Gunn has expressed interest in, but also talked about how challenging it is to use them.
Sure.
And then also just the government factions too. You bring in Ric Flair, you bring in, Amanda Waller. You have a lot of stuff that you could do.
By the way, you said Ric Flair, and that's
amazing. Ric Flair. Oh shit, Ric Flair. that was a very Freudian moment for me.
I would love to see Ric Flair in the DCU.
I got to watch that really amazing the triple threat Mexican wrestling that WWE did this past weekend, and I think that's just all still on my mind. It was so killer.
Amazing. Woo! All right. Sorry, continue.
But yeah, I think that it's a smart way to make these movies still have those moments of boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And have this kind of civilian humanistic story, which we did really well in Superman and talking about humanity. And by having it be these three groups, which, I mean, mostly that's usually what we're dealing with in superhero stories anyway, I think that makes a lot of sense. It does make me wonder if we are going to consider magic wielders metahumans, or if that's a separate entity, because that's where we get kind of nebulous in DC. Is, okay, well, is Zatanna a magician or a metahuman? I would say she's a magician. She's a sorceress. Etrigan, he's a demon, not a metahuman. So I'm wondering if we're going to just wait to then introduce some of the stuff that I find the most interesting, the magic, John Constantine kind of things later on down the road.
That's probably right. You got to say, so I think he's mentioning Wayne and everything to give you kind of the easy setup here. Yeah. Wayne Enterprises, that's part of it. And I like the explanation of Luthor, and the fact it's like, his corporation's actually done a lot of good for people. It's not just like his world domination type of thing. His obsession is Superman. You see that as much in the movie, right? And the fact that he was looked upon as a good guy explains more on that Max Lord comment at the very end, where he's like, see, we can all agree now on both sides that this guy's a douche, because there's probably some big argument beforehand that he was great for the world, and now it's like, no, look, he sucks, and Superman just proved it. So I like that. I mean, maybe I would like to have seen that a little bit more inside of the movie. Maybe there wasn't time for it, but I like the explanation of it and how they're going to make that work. Clearly Lex is going to have a bigger role in this overall. But no, I dug the way that he's shaping this. But I do think you got to focus on these, and as you said, you wait for the Constantines and all that stuff down the road once you've
Yeah.
established the world. So that being said, I got to ask you guys, what do you think overall about what James Gunn is saying? You think this makes sense, the way that he's kind of broken it up into the metahumans and other things as far as the government side of it goes? And as Chris mentioned with Rick Flag, and I wish it was Rick Flair, but Rick Flag and the rest of them on there, make sure that you put your thoughts there on the Clips channel, put it on the live chat afterwards, all that and more. Oh man, I'm so happy Nutrafol is back. I love Nutrafol. I've been using Nutrafol because it's got to be 2.5 years now. It is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand and is trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can feel great about what you're putting in your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified, the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. So a lot of supplements, they rely solely on ingredient studies. Nutrafol clinically tests final formulations to ensure that their efficiency uses a variety of hair measurement tools like hair counts and pull tests to access growth, quality, shedding, and texture. I remember when we got them years ago. Brett and I were like, all right, let's see. I'm getting older. Let's see if they can help us out. And boy, did they. It's been working amazing. You guys have been commenting on my picture that I posted last week on Instagram. You see what's going on. You got to see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping. You got to go to Nutrafol.com. You got to enter that promo code Kristian. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com. Nutrafol.com. But you got to use that promo code Kristian. That is Nutrafol.com, promo code Kristian. You will not be disappointed. Tell them we sent you.